Hello and welcome to another episode of Musical Musings. I'm joined by a very special guest, the talented Elijah Logan.
Hello.
So, Elijah, obviously I've just spoke to you off air to explain that I was a fan of yours,
Mm-hmm.
but can you start by telling the viewers a little bit about your growing up, your culture around you, stuff like that?
Okay. Um, well, when I was growing up, I really didn't listen to a whole bunch of music. In fact, I only listened to like one artist, and that one artist was Bon Jovi, and I listened to him probably only up till freshman year, and then it finally hit me that I needed to branch out to other artists. And then I eventually found Blink 182 as like one of the bands that I would listen to from then on, and then that kind of devolved into like all sorts of this punk outreach. So I like started finding other bands that were like pop punk, and I started like really getting into them. And that's when I realized that I really wanted to be like them. So I started making my music similar to them.
So, would you say that they were the main ones that had an influence on what you're trying to do now?
Yeah, I'd say those are pretty huge influences on what I do. Even it can be, like big title bands or even small bands that no one knows about. Like they all have influences over what I do.
Mhm. So obviously, as a young boy, you went through school and that, like we all do. Was
Hmm.
there any particular music teacher or anyone that had any influence on you?
Not necessarily a music teacher, but my theater teacher, Miss Target, had this she gave me like this really big impact or made me more comfortable to perform on a stage because I did theater throughout all of high school. And it got me to this point where I was really comfortable in front of, showing talent in front of like a lot of people. So
Mhm. So, sort of, what is your main sort of songwriting process?
my main songwriting process is usually whenever I'm down or feeling a certain way about a certain situation, I will sit there on my phone and just type out some of the thoughts that I have and then form them into lyrics. And it usually takes me about a day or so to finalize them.
And then obviously you'll add instruments and stuff after as
Hmm.
well, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously you said you listened to certain bands like Blink, but it was mainly Bon Jovi. What would
Right.
you say was the main song that clicked with you that you were like, oh, this is good, this is like well written or whatever?
Hmm. I think the like one huge song that clicked with me was in the summer of 2020 called Give Me One Good Reason.
Hmm.
It was like, this kind of punky attitude saying like, screw this and screw that. And then it just kind of like hit me. I'm like, that's where I want to go. I want to go down that kind of road a little bit. So
No.
it was something like that.
So obviously I can say this as a fan of that sort of music. Parents aren't always that keen on the sort of music we choose, are they? Were
Right.
your parents supportive of you and the way you want to go?
Yeah, they were very, very supportive of what I wanted to do. In fact, I think I brought them into the whole punk phase because they didn't really listen to that stuff before I got into it. And now they do.
Nice. That's normally the other way around, so it's quite
Yeah.
refreshing to hear it that way. So, obviously, as I said earlier, I'm a fan of yours. I
Right.
particularly love Dear Emma.
Oh, yes.
Can we talk a little bit about that and the inspiration behind that, stuff like that?
Of course. Dear Emma is one of those songs that's about missing somebody who has either moved out of your life or has moved on to something else. Uh, Dear Emma was written at a time when, after me and Emma hung out for that first day, I drove home singing a random song, and that formed into Dear Emma because I had to, write that in my bedroom when I got home. So after we hung out that first day, I wrote that song, and then the lyrics, of course, changed after she had moved out of state, and it, hit as hard as it did. And it really took me a while to get the song name of Dear Emma because it had so many other names at first, and then I finally added Dear Emma into the song, and I'm like, yeah, that's it.
Awesome. So, where would you say you want to take your music? Like, what's your short-term goal first, I suppose?
A short-term goal, I want to take my music probably as far as it can. Like, I want to see how many people it can reach. But
Mhm.
as like short term, I could just, start playing like local clubs and everything and trying to get my name around the town and then, out forth.
Ah, okay, so obviously that's a short-term plan. Have you got a sort of longer-term game plan of how you're going to achieve these things?
I've got this program that I'm doing in college to kind of help me, fund the music career. So hopefully, once I get out of college, I can have that sort of degree or something that will help me get a job so I can fund the music career and then, watch the music career hopefully take off from there. But that's what I'm really looking forward to is hopefully watching it take off one day. And that's kind of what I'm waiting on.
Believe me,
So
it will.
I hope so.
I mean, I'm just going to break from the sort of main interview for a minute and ask a couple of the random viewer questions, if that's all right.
Of course.
In your opinion, does pineapple belong on pizza?
In my opinion, does pineapple belong on pizza? I mean, you do you, that's not my thing.
I agree with you, but there we go.
Yeah.
Another viewer wants to know, what is your go-to beverage when creating a song?
Go-to beverage. I'm not sponsored at all, but this right here is my go-to beverage. It's Sprite.
Okay.
Because for the longest time, I got like hooked on Sprite because I was taken off of caffeine. So
Mhm.
that was like the only thing I drank, and it's still the only thing I drink nowadays.
I get you. So vocally, you said obviously you did theatre when you were younger.
hmm
Is that what sort of inspired your vocal style, or did you have other training aside from that?
I had other trainers aside from the vocal style of theater, but I definitely say theater made it more comfortable for my voice to kind of come out, if you know what I mean.
Mhm. So obviously, that is where you're at the moment. You're obviously still very young.
hmm
If you could tour with one artist, who would you want to tour with? That?
Hmm. There are a lot of artists that I would love to tour with, but I think the best or one of the artists, there's actually two that I have in mind right now, maybe three. Either Sum 41, Simple Plan, or Bowling for Soup.
Good choices.
Those three.
So obviously, those you mentioned, once you'd found your genre and your style, did they influence you as well as the others that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I'd say, they had a really huge influence over what I, did because I think Pierre actually listened to Dear Emma, I think it was, and he said that it sounded like Bowling for Soup. Pierre, lead singer, Simple Plan, but
Mhm.
um, yeah, he said it has sounded like Bowling for Soup, and I took it as like a huge compliment because Bowling for Soup is one of my favorite bands.
Funny enough, I actually said that to a friend of mine today when I was listening to your music.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
I said I
awesome.
sort of get Bowling for Soup all-time low kind of vibes.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you trying to sort of take something from those styles, or do you specifically want to forge your own style and not be compared to others?
I mean, as much as I would love to forge my own style, I think it'd be better for me to like be compared to other bands because it's like I kind of fit in, you know?
Mhm. I get you. So obviously, I'm a big fan of sort of the pop punky emo genre, like I
Yeah.
was saying to you off air. Would you say that that's still very much alive over there?
I think it's coming back around. I think that it's going to have some sort of uprising, and I want to be here for that uprising.
You're going to be a big part of it, in my opinion.
I hope so. I hope I can make an impact on this uprising.
Because over here, like in the UK, the scene doesn't really exist anymore.
I see.
It seems to be sort of an undercurrent that's starting to bubble again. So maybe, like you say, it's going to gradually take off
Yeah,
again. So it's very nice for me to be able to sit and chat with people like you that obviously like the same music.
of course.
So are there any sort of small bands over there that I should be aware of?
Any other small bands over here that you should be aware of? Uh, the thing I can list off a few off the top of my head, like Single by Sunday or Don't Panic, Just Rock. Like those guys are pretty good.
Mhm.
Um, I'm trying to think of more off the top of my head, but I'm like blanking right now, and I apologize.
That's cool. I get that. So obviously, I want to talk more about you as a person as well.
Okay.
So, growing up, obviously, you listened to Bon Jovi, but what did your parents listen to when you were very young, stuff like that?
When I was very young, I'd say my dad listened to more of the grunge stuff, and my mom listened to just more of the mellow stuff, I'd say. Like bands like Journey, bands like, uh like piano heavy type stuff. Because I remember back in the early days, my mom used to play piano a lot, and I'd get super like entertained by it. Then I grew up and I wanted to play piano, and I did it.
So, you've always had a fascination with music, whether that be as a kid then or now as an artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
I
would you,
mean, sorry.
sorry, go on.
Ever since I was like 7 years old, I want to say, I've had like this fascination with just wanting to perform on a stage in front of thousands of people.
I understand that. Like, so what was the thing that made you choose music over theatre?
Music to me, like music versus theater. Theater, you're given this script, you're given like this part, you're given this role, and they expect you to do well in that certain role. When, in music, you can make whatever you want. It's free, and you have all this creativity that you can just plug into that outlet.
Also, so I suppose the next question that most people would want to know is what's next for you? What's coming next?
What's coming next is more music, and we're probably looking at, farther down the road, an album. So
When you say more music, is there anything you can give us, like a little sneak peek, a title or
a
something?
little sneak peek for one of our next ones.
Yep.
I mean, I've got a guitar back here. I could play something for you.
If you could, that'd actually be amazing.
Let me see what I got here. All right. So this is one that's kind of acoustic, also has been electrified. I don't know how well I'm going to play it here, but we're going to try. This is called One Way Window. Shut the blinds. Maybe I will go away, but not this time. Something's got me here to stay as I look in. All I see is joy and laughter without me. Seems like you were better after I had disappeared. Looking at you through a one-way window. You don't seem to wanna look at me. Looking through a window to a room that I'll never see. There's a little bit of a verse and a chorus for you.
That is absolutely amazing. I'm actually excited to hear that as a fan.
Well, thank you. Let me put that back. Come on. There it goes.
So that particular one, I'm going to take a guess first. So please correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Was that inspired by a female?
Yes.
I mean, we've all been there, haven't we? But...
yeah, of course.
So is that mainly what most of your inspiration is, sort of your real life experiences, as you were saying earlier, like situations?
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much write about like experiences that either I've faced or someone else has faced. And I hope to write them as a way to like connect to someone who might be in a similar situation and, pull them out of that dark space. So
that's really good, like really inspirational to actually hear that.
Yeah.
And I mean that genuinely to you one-on-one. But if you could give a message to sort of any young artist now, what would you say?
My message to young artists out there is keep doing what you're doing. Even when people tell you that you're not good enough, keep going, because one day you'll get there. And, as even I'm still hoping to get there one day, I still got this faith that I can make it. And if you have that drive and that attitude that you will make it, you probably will. So keep doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. So aside from that, just for a little bit of general chit chat for the viewers, like,
okay,
what record out there would you say is the best sort of pop punk album ever made? Like no skips.
No skips for me. Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, Blink 182. That one I've listened to on like repeat several times. I even have like a custom made shirt of that album.
That sounds awesome.
Oh man, that one's really good.
So this is going to be a controversial viewer question.
Okay,
I
of
wasn't going to ask this, but because you seem like a chilled out dude, I'm going to ask you. What
course.
is your least favorite song that you've ever done?
My least favorite song that I've ever done. Like, are you talking about least favorite that I've made, or
Yeah.
oh gosh, I don't know if I necessarily have a least favorite, but hmm. That one's tough because it's like choosing what's your least favorite child
My
almost. So,
viewers are asking better questions than me. I don't like it.
but I don't know if I have a least favorite. I'd say like it's probably something off ITV, which is in the balance because it's like farther from the stuff that I do now. One of those maybe, but even then, I still like those ones a lot. So I don't think I do have a least favorite.
So what would you say was the hardest song for you to make from?
The hardest song to make. Man, I'd say there's probably two in my head right now that are really hard for me to make, and those two tracks are called "It Slipped Away" and "Look What You've Done." "Look What You've Done" especially was one of the hardest ones to make because the wording on that had to be like specific and not like overly offensive. So
So you wanted to take a dig at the person, but without it being too
right.
specific. And I'm
You
gonna
gotta
need
have
that
that
with
one
what's
song
going
that
on in
takes a
life.
dig at someone. So
I get you. I'm gonna need that with what's going on in my life, so I'll take that.
awesome.
But now I'm gonna flip the question what the viewer just asked. What's
Okay.
your favorite song you've ever made?
Favorite. Right now, I'd say my absolute favorite song I've ever made is a song titled "Crush."
Oh,
That one's really fun, and it kind of reminded me of like Beastie Boys or Sum 41's Fat Lip style. It kind of reminded me like that.
a little bit harder, something like that, with a little
A
bit
little bit
more
of harder, a
experience.
little bit of rap, even like it's like intertwining with all different sorts of things, and it's really fun.
So when you say rap, does that mean you're rapping, or have you got somebody else rapping?
I'm probably gonna do the rapping here. Like I don't know how well I'm gonna do it, but we're gonna figure that out when the time comes.
I'm intrigued. I was gonna put you on the spot, but I'll be nice and I won't do that to you now.
All right.
Unless
Like
you
even
want
if
to
you do put
rap
me
for
on
the
the spot,
viewers.
I'll do it.
You want to rap for the viewers?
Should I rap for the viewers? All right. Let me grab my guitar. We'll do it. All right. Let me take this strap off because the strap is falling off anyways. All right. We'll give you like a little bit here. Let me see if I can pull up the lyrics. I don't know when this is going to come out, but we'll figure it out when it does. So it goes like that. I don't mean anything to you, and that's fine. Apparently, I'm really good at crossing that line. Didn't have to stick around just to not find out, but I did it for you, and it all went south. Something like that.
Awesome.
It's gonna be like this Sum 41 Fat Lip Beastie Boys type feel. So
That was very good, and I'm looking forward to that both as a fan and as somebody trying to get into the industry as a podcaster myself.
oh yeah.
So obviously you've got an album down the line, you're saying.
Right.
Are we talking next year or further?
I think it has potential of coming out maybe next year. That's what I'm looking at because we plan on just releasing singles this year. But probably by next year or further down the road, we'll probably have that whole album out one day.
And what do you think of artists that just release EPs and won't sort of do a full-length album for their fans? What's your view on that?
My view on that, like that's totally up to them and whatever they decide. If that's what they want to do, then that's what they want to do. It's purely up to them on what kind of style they release. So
I mean, would you say that harms them though, because the fans wouldn't necessarily go back for more of the shorter length stuff when they could just get a similar album that's full length?
I mean, it also depends on like how the viewer sees it. Like when they look at like an album full of songs versus like an EP of the specific songs they're looking for, it's like it depends on the viewer on how they want to like check it out. So
I mean, would you say you prefer albums because they give you a narrative, or do you have no
Me
preference?
personally, I've always been an album kind of guy, but
Mhm.
you know, if it's better or if it's easier to release EPs first or albums first or even singles, it's like whatever's best is fine with me. As long
Mhm.
as it's getting out there and they can hear it.
Yeah, I get you. So, what's your sort of plan to get your music out there? Is it just streaming services, or have you got other things in mind?
I mean, it pretty much is just going off the streaming services and making promotional content for it. I also plan to eventually, like I said earlier, play in local clubs, so I have a
Hmm.
chance to promote my songs there as well. And I think that ultimately that's the best way to go about it.
Uh-huh. Well, you heard that, guys. If you're ever over stateside, give Elijah a shout and go and see him. He's very good at what he does. But also, apart from that, I've wanted to ask you this question about the inside of the industry, if I can. Do
Okay.
you find it hard working with like management and stuff like that, or?
I mean, there's days where it can be challenging to work with someone similar to like management or such, but like I'd say, you know, it's professional and you do what you do.
Mhm. Thank you for that insight as well. I suppose that is all the questions I have. So thank you for your time.
Of course.
It was wonderful to have you on an episode, and hopefully we can do this again when you've released some more stuff.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That would be amazing. So thank you for your time, and see you next time, guys.
See ya.